What's up, St. Louis? It's your host, Luke Farrell of the STL Bucket List Show. The STL Bucket List Show is driven by Bomarito Automotive Group. Bomarito is Missouri's #1 car dealership with over 20 locations, so I guarantee that there's one in your neighborhood. Since the 1970s, Bomarito has sold over 1 million cars, and John and the entire team made us feel completely comfortable when we picked up our new vehicle recently for the family. So I can't thank the Bomarito team enough for driving this episode forward, and enjoy the show.
If you want to hear about St. Louis, tune into the Bucket List Show weekly. Hear what Marissa and Luke say. It drops every Wednesday. Got a dope new guest every single week. Buckle up for the ride. Who's it gonna be? Who's on the show today? They rep St. Louis. What to do in the loo on a late night, or maybe what to do on a date night. Yeah, Bucket List has you covered. They know what's going on. What's going on? They'll give you, hey, 18 different things to do, or 19 if you need one more to choose. Yeah, this city is a place we call home. A place we call home. Yeah.
What's up, St. Louis? It's your host, Luke Farrell of the STL Bucket List Show. We're back with another episode highlighting the people, places, and events that make St. Louis special. We have one of those people here, and we're going to talk about places, because we're here with GoJet Airlines. We have the president, CEO, and founder of GoJet Airlines, Rick Leach. Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in.
Nice to meet you as well.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
I came and visited you guys probably about a month ago, maybe a little bit over, and I got to meet some of your guys' attendants, got to see some of the day that I visited was the day before Easter. You guys had a huge Easter egg hunt in the lobby when I walked in, and I walk in and I'm like, what's going on? Everybody's running around chasing Easter. I'm freaking out. And I'm like, oh, they're celebrating Easter as the Friday before Easter. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was really exciting. Got to see your guys' hangar, got to see all the stuff that you guys do back
Did
there.
you get to see the airplane?
Oh yeah, we got to go in one.
Good.
Yeah, we got to go in one, or got to go in two, I think. And then we got to see your maintenance team working on the planes. And I mean, it's amazing to see how big these hangars are. Because I've been to private hangars, and to see these huge commercial hangars is definitely a sight. But Rick, I want to learn a little bit more about you. I know you've been in the industry for 40 plus years, so I want to kind of go back before aviation.
Okay.
Tell us about Rick as a kid. Tell us about growing up and what made you fall in love with this.
Well, grew up in St. Charles, Missouri, so right here in
Hey.
the St. Louis area
Nice.
my whole life, actually. So um, it was my whole life. Now, the industry took me away from St. Louis, which was I was the first kid in the family, or probably anybody in the family, to really move away. So it was the industry does do that to you. So I'm very fortunate to be in my position as a airline CEO and be able to live where I grew up. That's very uncommon in our business. But no, my whole life I lived out in the St. Charles area in various spots. Grew up in a little sort of entry level, what everybody back in the 60s was having the dream of getting their own home in little St. Charles Hills off of Zumbell Road out there. So it's the whole thing. Where'd you go to high school? So everybody knows sort of where you lived based on where you went to high
went
school.
To St. Charles High, or you?
Well, I went to St. Charles High because West hadn't opened, and then I went to West. So
Nice.
I was one of the first graduating classes out of St. Charles West back at the time. But my whole life was there. So obviously, what everybody else did, I early on and was involved in music. So that was interesting to me in the middle years of education. And then when I went to St. Charles High and then moved to St. Charles West, they didn't have the orchestra program I was in. So I decided to start singing. And so that's how I sort of got into that. Ended up with a vocal performance scholarship to a bunch of different schools that I could choose. I got a scholarship in music and decided just to stay right there. Didn't want to leave. A little hometown boy in St. Charles, stayed at Lindenwood, took their scholarship, which was a full ride at the time. So that was, my life's there, my friends there, my support system, family was there, friends for life there. And then the little twist was after the first year of college, decided to, because I'm a good Catholic boy, very active in the Catholic Church, actually went into the seminary, studied to be a Catholic priest.
Really?
Where I was for almost 4 years. And that was probably one of the most formative times of my life. And it's the skills I learned there I use every day in business, not what I learned in business school and that kind of stuff. It's what I learned there about how to listen, how to see the person beyond what you see, but try to really see the person. And in our business, especially when you're in leadership, it's very important
Yeah,
that you realize the
course.
people that are on your team, their strengths and what they
Mhm.
bring to the table and things like that. So, after college, I did move after the seminary. I got it. This is when I got into the business because
Mhm.
not people think I'm gonna. When I'm interviewed by aviation magazines, they're expecting me to say I worked on a farm and I'd see airplanes flying overhead and I'm oh boy, I want to be like that someday. No, I needed a job.
Mhm.
That's sort of how it started. A kid who I gave voice lessons to, his father was in the business, and they came to hear me sing because I was still under contract. So I was singing at a convention, and they came out to hear me, and they said, "Oh, how's school?" I go, "Oh, I'm leaving," and they go, "Well, what you gonna do?" I go, "I need a job," and so
Mhm.
that's when I'll leave an application at the airport,
Yeah.
go pick it up. So I went and picked it up, and that sort of got me into the business. There's a whole story about that, but
Mhm.
that's how I got in the business, and the rest is
And that
history,
was in
sort of.
the early '80s then?
Early '80s, very
Early
early '80s.
'80s.
Then I moved, from here out to California
Mhm.
with my second airline, Jet America Airlines. Started with Air Illinois, then Jet America Airlines,
Okay.
and moved out there in '84.
So where did so obviously you were in the industry, but what led you into entrepreneurship? Because a lot of people just get with their airline and they work with their airline. I mean, what led you to want to start your own brand? I mean, was there stuff that stood out to you that you wanted to change or that you wanted
Well,
to
no,
add to things?
it's sort of as part. Obviously, I started with Air Illinois, went with Jet America.
Yeah.
Jet America was being acquired by Alaska Airlines and merged. I
Yeah.
had since moved from the West Coast where I
Mm.
went, where I
Yeah.
met my wife. We moved back to St. Louis with Jet America,
Mhm.
and then Jet America got merged into Alaska Airlines, and they offered me about 20 different jobs back out west, and I just didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
I was here now. I was resituated, had 2 kids by then.
Nice.
I sort of wanted to stay, and I thought I was just gonna go straight. I was gonna get out of the business, do something different. This
Mhm.
little airline called Resort Air, um, was deciding they were gonna go from a 135, which is a certain certificate of classification in the industry. It was the regional, carrier of the time or the commuter carrier of the time,
Mhm.
and they were wanting to get bigger airplanes and become a 121 carrier, and so they found me, I found them, and I went to work with this little airline who was boarding maybe about 1,000 passengers a month at the time,
Yeah.
flying 19-seat Metroliners, and, started with them as their director of stations and worked with this gentleman. His name was Hulas Kanodia. He was our owner and CEO at the time, and he was a very creative entrepreneurial mind. I was always creative and outside the box thinker, but he learned the business from the ground up because it was just by happenstance
Mhm.
he got involved in it as well. And so he sort of, I don't want to say broke all the rules, but created new ones.
Yeah.
And so the entrepreneurship in general was ingrained in me as who I was and how I got involved in things I would do growing up in school, always wanting to be in charge of things and wanting to be a leader. But he helped me realize that don't ever realize that what's in front of you is reality, is not changeable.
Mhm.
You can always find a way to change or control what's considered uncontrollable at times. And so he was a very sort of formidable part of my development and how to apply those skills in aviation.
Mhm.
And so that carrier, which then became the holding company, Trans States Holdings, which there were 3 airlines that we owned. Resort Air became Trans States Airlines, which was a hometown airline here. Compass Airlines, I acquired for the company, which was owned by Delta Airlines at one point, and then we acquired it. And then I started GoJet Airlines as part of the holding company. So the holding company's been around for almost 50 years.
Mhm.
And so I didn't just say, okay, I want to start an airline. I was part of this airline family of carriers, if
And
you
you wanted
will.
to
And I was
expand.
the president and CEO of each of those. I was president and CEO of all 3 of those carriers at the same time, which is also unheard of. That just means I'm 3 times crazier than all the other CEOs in the
Yeah.
business. And there's not many of us left. But
Yeah.
so that was exciting. But that's all I knew. And so when we had the opportunity and the need to start GoJet because we were awarded a contract with United, we couldn't fly it at our other carrier, Trans States. Contractually, there was a problem. So we had to start a new carrier, and that's when I started GoJet.
Wow. Yeah, being the CEO of 3 different businesses at that time with
Yeah,
with
it's
little kids at home too.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
And,
So
and it's like kids too. You just said kids.
yeah,
None of them behave at the same time.
no, no.
They all have different personalities and they act up all at different
I
times.
was just telling her before you got here, I have 2 babies, 15 months and 3 months, and I said I woke up at 3:30 this morning. It was just normal morning. They're crying, and you wake up, and then you have a whole day before the actual 9 a.m. day starts.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's exciting. And then I'll go home and work again once after we leave here, and then they'll go to bed at 7, and then I'll drink something, and then I'll go to sleep.
I'm with you.
But it's the best. As I say all those things. But so how do you approach leadership today? Because you mentioned your leadership style was molded by one of your mentors. Then obviously your workers have changed over the past couple decades. So how do you approach leadership now?
Yeah,
as a
no,
longtime
and
CEO?
I'll be the first to say that his leadership style, my mentors and mine, are very different.
Yeah.
Very. I was the more face of the company.
Yep.
And he was one of the along with myself, one of the creative minds behind the company. But our leadership styles were very, very different. But it changes. Leadership styles change as you have different roles. I mean, I learned leadership when I became a supervisor for the first time. But when the supervisor, you're working side by side in the trenches, making things happen. And then you become like a manager over supervisors, and you're sort of making sure that they're representing the company in the way you do. So your leadership style has to evolve. But what I like to tell people when I talk at conferences, especially conferences about leadership, is you think that as you move up in a company, you have more control over what goes on. It's quite the opposite. You have to hopefully inspire the people that you work with you can't be a leader unless somebody follows you, right? They have to follow you. And also you want to get the most and the best out of them as well, because their input is going to be so valuable and help gauging and directing how we do it. So in leadership, it becomes very much a participative style. And then it becomes where you're sort of giving yourself over to it, because at some point, what drives the product, I mean, you have the idea to create the product, but you've got to inspire people to deliver the product the way you hope that you wanted it delivered, so it's valuable.
Yeah.
And so the leadership comes more in trying to get the best out of people so that they're empowered to have a positive impact. And that's really what I do more now, because I have very, very capable, I'm very fortunate in being with this company, Trans States Holdings, which owns GoJet Airlines. It's very fortunate for me to be in a position where I have people that have worked for me for 3, pushing 4 decades with the company, but working for me for the whole 38 years I've been here, or at least 3 decades, or 20. Our leadership, our managers, a lot of our people, department heads and directors have been with us right out of high school or college. They grew up here. We know their kids. We've seen their kids grow up, and so they finish each other's sentences. So I'm in a very envious position having a team like that. But leadership changes, and my style has changed because I've had to give over more control to the very capable people that I work with every day.
And it goes all the way down the line, because then it goes into the flight attendant that just graduated, and they're the ones that the customers are actually seeing, and that's why it's so important. And the fact that you've been there that long, obviously you've been there the whole time, but then also it's not like you're coming into the place, saying, hey, this is what worked over here. It's like, no, this is a different culture that you created here at GoJet.
The culture evolves, I mean, you should never be so stuck that you're not willing to be, like I tell my new hire classes, I just actually spoke to a new hire class right before I came here. And I tell them, challenge us to be better because you're here. Make a difference because you're here, because we want our experiences with our people who are our product at the end of the day to change us, to make us better. And so when you speak to those inspiring aviators, those flight attendants, those pilots, you want them to know that, one, you want them here. They're becoming part of really a family. You hear that cliche about companies being like, we're sort of like a family. We really are at GoJet. We're not so big yet. And even though we were a multi-airline group, that you can't have more first-person contact with these folks,
I noticed that when I visited you guys.
Yeah, so and that's really key and important. Yes, you have to have hierarchy in a company, but that hierarchy, you try to push it down so it's very flat. Yeah, there has to be a president and a CEO. There has to be other key management, where there might be multiples of those. There's only one of me. But you don't try to get so caught up in the ego of that position, because that position of low doesn't drive results. It's really how you can work with the talent that's around you to get out to together bring the most out of everybody.
No, I agree with you 100%. So a lot of people that are listening right now, GoJet, they might not realize they're flying on a GoJet operated
Right.
airline.
Who
I'm
is
from
that?
St. Louis. I'm a St. Charles guy. I'm almost 30. I've lived in St. Charles, lived in St. Louis City my whole life. And when they said GoJet, I was driving over that way. I've never even driven that way to see your guys' facility because you just drive down 70
Right.
and you see everything going on over there. But unless you're heading for something, you don't go over there. So a lot of people don't realize they're flying on a GoJet operated aircraft. But can you explain how the regional airline model actually works?
Yeah, no, they won't. And I always tell even people that have known me for a long time, now they know,
Yes.
or people in the industry know who GoJet is or who Trans States is or who Trans States Holdings is. But if you're not, you would know us as United Express, as American Eagle, because we've flown for them before. You would know us as Delta Connection, because we've flown for all those carriers over the years among the 3 companies. Because it's the regional carrier takes on the identity of the mainline partner that they have a contract with. And it's like a franchise in a way, where you're franchising and you're an extension of their brand to the communities you serve, or the supplemental service you're providing in other communities or big hubs. And so we really, even though we're very proud of the fact that we're GoJet, we really don't want people to know GoJet, other than we are the hometown airline here in Missouri, the only airline based in Missouri. So that's sort of cool that you, among the 121 carriers, that you actually have one based right here in your state, which most states don't have that. So that's sort of cool. But one would say, well, it's bad that people don't know who you are, but it really isn't, because if they don't, then they're understanding what the brand relationship is between the regional and the major airline, where we're an extension of their brand, helping them sort of give penetration in the market that they couldn't otherwise do with their size equipment. So we want the customer to see that as United Airlines or Delta Airlines or American Airlines. So our relationship is that we are under a contract for usually it's 10 years or more, and it gets renewed over the course of time. And we're providing service, transportation service, commodity service, that extends their brand. It's a United Airlines. We are exclusive United Airlines partner at present for GoJet. And we are based here, operationally based here, have a large maintenance operation here which is not only providing maintenance for our carrier, but we have an MRO, which is a maintenance repair and overhaul. So we're one of only 3 airlines in the country that has both a 121 certificate and a 145 certificate, which is a maintenance overhaul facility. And so we're based here, but we operate out of the hubs of Chicago, Newark, and Washington Dulles for United today. So that's where the hub operations are, but we have obviously entries in from those markets here into St. Louis that we operate. So the one way you would know is you would see on your ticket, operated by GoJet Airlines, but otherwise you think you're booking United. But the other thing is, our airplane you're going to get on is going to be the aircraft that I designed, and the team helped me make a reality, and that's the CRJ 550 that we created, and it's unlike anything in the market today. So when you get on the 550, you know you're flying on GoJet as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, so that makes complete sense. Like, you guys provide a service to United. And so how large is
It helps them extend their brand.
Yeah,
basically.
because you have more planes out in there. You
Right,
have more
exactly.
more available times to book flights and more, for overflow, more flights to different cities and everything like that. So when you're looking at your fleet, I mean, I saw some of your fleet, but you mentioned the aircraft, what kind you fly, but how large is your guys' GoJet fleet? Can you guys talk about some of that?
Yeah, we've got 58 aircraft on the certificate. Some of them we acquired during COVID, because the 550 is created out of the base aircraft, which is a CRJ 700. And so we acquired assets that we had never converted yet into 550, because then COVID hit. They would have all been in the air a long time from now. But all those aircraft, so we'll have about 58 aircraft in service by the latter part of this year. And so from a year ago, January, to the end of this year, we would over doubled the size of the company. And that's exciting for us, because a lot of exciting growth. And we've been very successful in hiring, so we're getting a lot of aircraft in even sooner than we had originally planned. And we've got our eyes set on some others, so we'll grow beyond that is our plan. Next year, hopefully add some additional aircraft that we're working on with our partner United to make sure that they have the full complement and they have their full appetite satisfied of 550s that they would like in their fleet. And they want more than even we have on the plate today. And so we're working with them to identify more. So we've got, like I said, we'll operate about 260 flights a day. We'll have, by the time all the aircraft are in the air, we'll probably have about 1,800, almost 2,000 employees, with just GoJet by itself. And like I said, 58 lines, 58 active aircraft.
Mhm.
That lines of flight, that'll create about maybe 53 to 54, depends on maintenance spares and
Yep.
operational spares and things like that. So
So as the CEO, you're really the driver of the long-term vision. So when you think about the long-term vision and what you
mhm.
guys are building here in St. Louis, is obviously you talked about growth already there. Adding jobs is so important to the city, being able to bring that many jobs. But what other long-term goals do you have for the company, and things that you're working
Well,
on?
obviously, we wanna grow on a couple platforms. One is obviously the commercial airline side of the business, so we wanna add these additional 550s and some other 550s we have our eye on working with
Mhm.
United. So we're anxious to add more beyond this as well. Um, and and that'll be into next year
Yeah.
when that'll happen. But the other thing is, it's a real important part, especially when you talk about St. Louis, is our MRO facility. When we open that up, it's adding about 150 high quality jobs,
That's great.
high quality technical jobs to St. Louis. And we've got a really an amazing maintenance team who is just so busy right now. We've got 5 heavy lines for heavy maintenance over there, and they're full. Right now,
Mhm.
they're full with all of our growth. We have people standing in line wanting our services that we would bring here to St. Louis,
Yeah.
and we would do the work here. But right now, it's filled with all the aircraft we're bringing in because our growth is happening so rapidly.
Mhm.
A lot of that capacity that we would otherwise be able to use for the
Other
other
clients and
clients in the
yeah.
industry and bring here to St. Louis, we're using to satisfy all of our needs and our
Mhm.
expedited growth. So, so one is right now the 550 is a big focus, and I want to make sure our partner United, we're very committed to them, and we want to make sure that we provide all the capacity they want. That's our main objective right now. And when they're said, okay, we think we're satisfied, we have enough 550s or everything we want, then I'll know a little in advance when
Yeah.
that happens, and then I'll start looking elsewhere. I mean, the great thing about GoJet being part of a larger airline company that it was part of, the other carriers as well as GoJet has done business with all of them,
Mhm.
and we know all of them. And because there's only so many CEOs, airline CEOs in the business, all the CEOs know each other as well.
Yeah.
So we're not unknown to one another. So the opportunity would always be there if we felt a need to add another code if we wanted to,
Mhm.
or if there was a demand and United didn't have anything that was necessary and we had the capacity to do so. But right now, we're so focused on making sure we satisfy all the needs for United that they have
Mhm.
from GoJet, because what we don't want to do is try to change any of our attention and distract it because we'll lose bandwidth from being able to deliver to United
Yeah.
what they need and quite frankly what they deserve. They've been an excellent, very, very good partner to us, and we want to make sure we satisfy all of their needs before we look elsewhere.
Yeah.
But there are opportunities elsewhere,
Mhm.
but we want to make sure we fill all their needs first. So there's a lot more to do on the 550 front,
Mhm.
and there's some other creative ideas with the 550-esque kind of concept that
Mhm.
might help bring some value to GoJet for sure, but the rest of the industry. But as you may or may not be aware, there's a thing called scope clauses in the business that
Mhm.
limits what carriers like we can do for the major airline.
Mhm.
So we've got to make sure there's capacity to do things beyond the 50-seat segment, but there will be. There's opportunities every year. Some of those slots open up. So as
Mhm.
soon as we feel like we have the opportunity to do more and not take away from the 550 program for United, we'll seize those opportunities. But they are there. We've got a great reputation, a great product, a
Mhm.
great history, and a great story, and therefore that will create more opportunities for us.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. So as you're scaling this business, I mean, obviously, you have to balance innovation and both safety. So how do you balance both of that? Because you're innovating to try to scale, but also at the core of what you do, safety and training is so important.
Well, if there's anything I ever, and I assure you that none of my operational or safety focused people, which we all are, you can't be in this business and not be safety focused. So, first off, it's the core and the foundation of everything that we do. And there should be no decision we ever make that compromises or lowers the bar
Mhm.
of safety. Even though we might be meeting the safety requirements, in most cases, carriers like us are exceeding the safety targets,
Mhm.
which is what you want to do. You
Of
want to
course.
continue to drill down and close those Swiss cheese holes to mitigate and mitigate and mitigate. And that's sort of at the culture and the core of what we do. So nothing from an innovative side would ever compromise safety, or we wouldn't do it.
Mhm.
It either you would hope that it's going to just expand the brand and just enhance safety,
Mhm.
or it's going to in some way by the creative approach that we have or the innovation we have is going to even raise the bar further on safety. So first off, they're not, one doesn't affect the other.
Mhm.
If anything, safety requirements could affect crazy outside the box thinking of innovation.
Mhm.
But you've got to always make sure that all of these are met or stimulated to be better, or you wouldn't do it.
Of course.
So they don't become conflicting ever.
Mhm.
You don't
Yeah.
let it become. If you
Yeah.
do, then you're not at the core what a 121 carrier should be.
Mhm. No, that's great.
Yeah.
So always doing that. So, what about Lambert Airport? Obviously, you know that you have a good relationship with those guys over there, but how have you seen them evolve over the years? And tell us like what that means, you know, to have something like that here, right in St. Louis, that's accessible for
Well,
everybody.
it's I have obviously was here when TWA had,
Mhm.
over almost 500 flights a day to out of St. Louis, and I think that, and you don't know what you had until it's gone is a true statement.
Mhm.
I mean, you had Ozark Airlines, which was based here, and then you had TWA that had such a dominant hub here, and
Mhm.
those two together, you could just go anywhere in the world almost nonstop, right?
Yeah, it's great.
And we sometimes take that for granted. And there's a lot of communities like St. Louis or smaller communities that have lost service that realizes, boy, we should have really supported. We shouldn't have talked so bad about those carriers. We should
Yeah.
have supported them better, where they didn't feel like they had to go somewhere
Mhm.
to join forces to become stronger or to become more relative in the business. But I've watched the evolution from those just dominant carriers where you get a cloud in the sky and you'd have ATC delays here in St. Louis, and you had
Mhm.
the military traffic in and out of here that was so significant with the Guard and everything. That's lessened now with the Guard moving, but so then has the mega hub that existed here at one point in time. I mean, we're still not back to where we were, but I think that the airport has done a great job in trying to bring in other capacity, trying to bring in some international traffic into St. Louis, as well as growing Southwest.
Yeah.
Um, and Southwest uh, can sometimes have a dampening effect on a market.
Mhm.
But Southwest is evolving even in their own reality, right? They're becoming a different carrier. But I've seen the airport change a lot. Obviously, the airport expansions happened. I was in management here at the airport and talked about that with the leadership of the airport and the community for decades
Mhm.
before it became a reality.
Yeah.
All the different scenarios that we were looking at. So I've got to see a lot back in my turboprop days,
Mhm.
and then obviously the regional jet days, and then just seeing the way things change. I mean, there were many carriers. You probably remember the names of.
Mhm.
Eastern Airlines was here. Western Airlines was here. The original Republic Airlines was here.
Yeah.
All the carriers Pan Am flew in here. All the carriers that existed that are gone are part of another, or their
They
history is
just
part.
merge or get bought
They're
out.
part
Yeah.
of another, right?
Yeah.
And so the industry and St. Louis with it has changed a great
Mhm.
deal because of that.
Yeah.
But I think the city and especially the airport leadership has continued to do a good job of keeping and even building. There's like we were just a spoke, let's say, in a Delta
Yeah.
or even an American before their acquisition of TWA. But even they started to see markets that made sense to fly not just to Atlanta or to their hub in Atlanta or to Detroit, but let's fly to some other cities as well because there's a good
Mhm.
or O&D, an origin and destination market there that has been vacated because
Yeah.
of TWA's stimulus they did back in the day. So
Yeah.
I think it's changed a lot. I mean, before where there'd just be a smorgasbord of carriers all up in the terminal,
Mhm.
and now there's just a few.
Yeah.
But providing still a good breadth of service, but not all the nonstop destinations we once
Variety that
had
you
here. And
had.
so
Yeah.
I always say to communities, be sure to take care of what you have because
Mhm.
trust me, you might not like it all the time, but when it's gone, you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
But I think the airport's doing a good job to continue to build the market here as best they can.
I just read a lot about the big project. They're gonna rehab it and all that.
With the
And
new terminal,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that
that's
sounds so
exciting.
great. Yeah.
That's exciting as well. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. So, We talk about St. Louis. Obviously, you get to build your business here in your hometown in St. Louis, St. Charles. You guys are right there on the edge of the river, so you're right there on the other
Oh
side of
yeah,
St.
I
Charles, like
watch the airplanes land
probably
over
10
my house.
minutes away from where you grew up off Zumbell Road. But what does St. Louis mean to you personally? I mean, obviously your family's here and all that, but also being able to professionally. I know you touched on it a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit more since we are on the STL bucket list show.
Yeah, no, it's just where I want to be. I mean, when I've lived elsewhere, and the elsewhere where I lived was a couple different places within California, and I just always felt like I was visiting. I didn't feel like I was part of
Hmm.
that community. I felt always like really just temporary.
Hmm.
Even though I looked at buying a house, or I looked at trying to get more involved in the community,
Yeah.
it just wasn't at my core and my soul. I mean, there's a lot of pride of people that come from the Midwest,
Hmm.
especially people that come from the St. Louis or the St. Charles area, and it's something they just don't forget. It really has a huge impact on them. And so I remember being gone for those years, and even bring my wife, who's from Alaska,
Oh, well.
to come and talk about culture shock.
Yeah.
Alaska, and then California, where she loved, and then let's go to St. Charles,
She
Missouri.
probably didn't have any
There
idea
was
what it
the old
even
there was an
was.
old statement. There
Yeah.
was a T-shirt that said, "Where in the hell is St. Charles, Missouri?"
Yeah.
Which is true. People
Yeah.
always think, "Oh, so oh no, you're from St. Louis." I go, "No, no, we're from St. Charles."
Yeah.
We always said, but
Yeah.
I love St. Louis, but
Right.
I mean, but you have a lot of pride being from
Yeah.
St. Charles
Of
as
course.
well.
Yeah.
But no, being here, when I came back, it was a happy time. I wanted my kids to grow up with the Midwest kind of experience, which is really good for families. It
Hmm.
just really, really is. But also, I was able to get myself back involved in some of the charities and charitable work, and being involved in some of them for now many decades. And I know I'm not going anywhere. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
going to be here. And so I know, especially in my business, you could be a transplant and then they're going to move you someplace else. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So I know that my investment in my community and in my friends and my family that's here is for the long term.
Yeah.
And that means a lot. I mean, being
Mhm.
part of this community is a lot. Being able to see how this community has changed and grown, and all that kind of stuff is back when you see the population of your certain St. Charles or whatever.
Yeah.
It was like, I remember when it was like 12 or 13,000. It's
Mhm.
like every time a person moved in, somebody changed that number.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's very prideful for me. I'm very
Mhm.
proud of where I'm from. And even when I was living in California, still very proud. I would fly back here just get my hair cut.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
go out there. Person couldn't speak English. No, that's enough, and they keep cutting. No, no, it's too short. No,
And you had to go back to
I'd fly back to St. Charles to get my
Yeah.
hair cut. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But no, it's a sense of pride for me. I love the community. I love the metropolitan area of St. Louis and St. Charles, and
Mhm.
how they've grown over the decades
Yeah.
in my lifetime. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I grew up in Dardine Prairie, Missouri, which is right
I
outside
know
Lake
where it's
St.
at.
Louis.
My son
and-
has a house there. Yeah.
Yeah, so over in Winghaven, and that kind of like on the outskirts of Winghaven. But my parents have lived there since the '80s, and I grew up there as a small town, and then now I drive over to their house now. And
Isn't
it's
it crazy? It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
I used to think Cottleville was
Yeah.
like 100 miles away.
Yeah.
Because I was a little kid, we'd go out there to the church picnics,
yeah.
and I'd fall asleep. I was,
Because it is from North St. Charles. It's about 28
well, we were
minutes
just down the
south,
2-lane
94.
road of
Yeah.
94 at the
Yeah.
time. There
Yeah.
was nothing. There were just trees. There was nothing there. And I wasn't until I was driving, I'm out there and go, Cottleville's right here.
Yeah.
I thought because I'd always fall asleep going
Yeah,
and fall asleep coming back as a kid.
yeah.
And then I'm like, yeah, I didn't realize it was that close.
At the St. Joe's picnics. and
Oh
the
yeah,
stuff
all
that
the
they
St.
used to
Joe's
do.
picnics,
Yeah.
their Christmas bazaars and stuff. Oh
Yeah.
God, yeah.
Yeah, it's a cute town.
Lots of fun times.
No, but I wanted to kind of talk about this opportunity for young people in St. Louis to get involved in aviation. So I kind of wanted to wrap our entire conversation up with opportunities that you guys offer to have young people work in aviation or GoJet specifically, or just these job opportunities. You mentioned 150 technical jobs that you guys offer. So how do young people get involved? I know you guys are always hiring.
Well, I'll tell you, some people think that to get into the airline business, you need to know somebody to get in the business. And I probably thought that back in the day. I mean, air travel was just a pipe dream to me.
Of
I
course.
had never flown until I was in college
Mhm.
for the first time. So, we were in a family that had the means to fly
Yeah.
back then. But the thing is, aviation is an open book for everybody. And people think, oh, okay, I have to be a pilot or I have to be a flight attendant. All those opportunities are here. and there's for people to aspire to here. I mean, we've got some great aviation schools around here.
Mhm.
Parks College, which is part of St. Louis University, it's a great aviation school. You've got in Edwardsville, they've got a great I don't know if they have a pilot, but they do have a maintenance program over there.
Mhm.
Lots of maintenance schools
Mhm.
within the state as well. But an airline is a complex company, not just flying airplanes.
Mhm.
We've got accounting people. We've got people that work in communications, or people that work in human resources type settings,
Mhm.
or people that work in administrative settings, or
Mhm.
uh, most of what you would experience, what you would think a company would have. An airline has those opportunities. You don't have to say, I want to fly an airplane.
Right.
Yeah, we want pilots,
Mhm.
or we want flight attendants, and those opportunities are surely here. But we hire the corporate offices here, so all of the back office stuff, payroll and accounting and engineering
Mhm.
and all that stuff is here in St. Louis.
Right.
You know, a lot of our tech ops, even though we have technical operations, maintenance operations throughout the country, the big core of it's here. The
Mhm.
leadership of it's here. The people that work behind the scenes, IT related stuff is here.
Mhm.
You know, all those opportunities are here. So an airline is a diverse group. It's a plethora of opportunities of hiring. And all those things that support the company are based right here in
Mhm.
St. Louis. Of course, we do all of our training for all of these folks as well, and that's here in St. Louis. And so there's a ton of opportunities. As we're growing the company, we need more people in all the areas. So I would say be sure to check our website out that has all the various openings, and there's opportunities there all the time.
Mhm.
You know, and sometimes you get into an airline and then you find a way to navigate into other parts of the career that you didn't know were accessible to you.
Yeah.
Once you get inside, you get your
Mhm.
sort of nose under the tent, if you will.
Yeah.
But there's a ton of opportunities because our corporate base is here,
Mhm.
and operationally we're sort of scattered about, but that operational that's all over the country is supported from here, and we need a core nucleus of folks to do that. People that do our crew scheduling, and our pilot scheduling, and our crew payrolls, and our employee payrolls,
Yeah.
and our human resources kind of stuff, and insurance work,
Mhm.
and like I said, accounting work, and all that stuff is here, as well as the technical jobs.
Yeah.
A lot of jobs in maintenance and tech ops, so obviously a big focus here because that's a big operational focus is here.
Mhm.
Engineering and things that would do that kind of stuff is here.
Mhm.
So I would say go to our website, and Liz can give you that information.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
it's got all of the openings at any given time, and I would say um, just don't limit yourself.
Mhm.
I mean, you don't know where within an airline, because there's so many different opportunities you can navigate into, that where you're going to find that's the right fit. Just get into the airline; the opportunities will be many. It's an
Mhm.
exciting industry.
Yeah, it's great. And for those that are interested, I know our core audience is younger, so being able to have these job opportunities here at home is amazing. I got to see the training class when I came by. A bunch of flight attendants from all over the country were in
But the
here.
key is to know that it's possible.
Yes, of
I mean,
course.
some people think, "Oh, I don't know anybody. I don't know how to get in. I don't know where to start."
Yeah.
And the thing is, that you need to know that there's a place for you here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of organizations out there that we do a lot of work with. Um, the Black Pilots Association, which is they have huge conferences, and they're good with mentoring the Asian pilots, Latino pilots, the Women in Aviation,
Mhm.
NGPA, the Gay Pilots Association, all these associations, as well as just our company. If you contact us and say, I would love to get into the airline business, how do I do this? Where would I fit?
Yeah.
We'll help you with that as well. But those groups I just said, they're there to mentor, to show people the roadmap of how to get into the industry, because everybody's welcome.
Mhm.
And a lot of people just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
The key is you got to realize it's very, very attainable, and it's extremely possible. And just don't limit yourself.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you for that. So one last question before we wrap.
Oh boy.
It is the STL bucket list show. I should have prepped your team on this, but I want to learn about some of your bucket list spots in St. Louis. So when you think of growing up, when you think of places that you love going, whether it's with your kids or maybe a restaurant you and your wife love to visit, or some places that when people come in, maybe another CEO comes in, you're like, I'm taking them here because this is my spot. Do you have some of those bucket list spots you can touch on?
Oh boy, gosh, you did.
I should have prepped the
You
team.
did not.
I didn't even
tell me
prep
that
them.
one. Well, we're gonna take them to sing karaoke because that's always a good time.
Yeah.
No. Oh wow, it depends on what they want to do. Like
Yeah.
if someone loves architecture and stuff, I'm gonna take them down to the city. I'm gonna take them to the old cathedral. I'm gonna take them to the new new cathedral.
Yeah.
Just breathtaking.
Of course.
Most people don't even, they drive by that building, but they don't know what's inside.
Yes.
You don't have to be a good Catholic to go inside.
Yeah.
You don't get struck by lightning if you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to see one of the most impressive, amazing mosaics that are in the world, let alone in this country.
Yeah.
And so definitely that. I mean, we've got the most amazing museums. I mean, the zoo, I mean, a free zoo, that doesn't exist in the world.
Yeah.
We have that here.
Mhm.
I mean, some of the museums we have are pretty amazing. Forest Park in and of itself is just an exciting adventure. Even if we live here, we sort of take it for granted. And then we all of a sudden go with folks that are visiting. We're like, oh, I never realized that was there.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I mean, sometimes it's good to become a tourist in your own city. So I would say, there's obviously amazing museums that we have and just amazing things to do. So I with people that are coming here, I mean, I'd like to do that. But as far as restaurants, obviously you got to love some good St. Louis barbecue, right? I mean, Happy's is great, but there's a lot of other really good ones. I love to look for the hole in the wall, the little place that, like I like some of the little restaurants that are down on Main Street in St. Charles. They're not the big wide ones, that I love to go there and take folks down there to those, like Novellas. There's a new little restaurant that's been there for a while. I call it the Adult Bar. But it's got good food and stuff too. I like that place. But there's a lot of really neat places down there that's really great to enjoy. I love going down to old Main Street, St. Charles, and letting people see the history that's there. And of course, when I was a kid in college, I did a sociology project about the history of St. Charles, a walking tour of it and everything like that. And so I got to know a lot. My great uncle was with the Historical Society. So I was always very interested and fascinated with our history. But
I was just down there at Grandma's Cookies. And at Grandma's Cookies, there's a place, there's a little church behind it. And there's this, they actually, I think, bought it or something, but it's just a museum church now. People just walk over there.
No, it's true.
Grandma's Cookies, the OG spot too. That's been there for a long time.
Oh, it is. It is. And there's a bunch of neat little, the mother-in-law house, which is now a different restaurant. I always used to love going there because the lady that owned it would just walk around in her long dress and with this casserole, like that whatever she made at that moment. But there's just so many neat things to do. And then you just go just a few miles out, like go down to Portage de Sioux and along the river, how beautiful that is down there. And there's just explore. I mean, it's all built up so much. It's very different than when I grew up in it. But just hanging out, I like to take people to see, like I said, the pretty amazing things about St. Louis, and that's things that people come here to see. But even those of us that live here, there's probably many of us that have never been up in the Arch. Isn't that crazy? It's true. It's just never happened. But we've lived here our whole lives, but we've never been up in the Arch. That's just insane.
Well, people, they don't take advantage of all these things. And now that I have kids, I go to all these places and I go to the park and it's free and it doesn't cost me any money. And I get to walk around and my kids run their energy out. And then I go home and I'm like, I just got to experience Forest Park. Rated one of the top park by USA Today in the entire country.
It's amazing. And even parks.
Any park.
When I was a kid, you might have a swing set and that maybe a merry-go-round.
Now these kids' parks are crazy.
And now the parks are like an amusement park.
Yeah.
And the things that we have for kids today to really sort of keep them entertained is off their tablets and entertained. It's pretty amazing. But no, there's so much. I wish I would have more time thinking, and I will think of 1,000 things after I leave here.
And you let us know.
But
it's
the most. It is the most. There's so much, and within just the shortest of drives, you can be in the middle of the most beautiful country. Wilderness, streams, trout streams, bass fishing areas. It just, I mean, my God, bush wildlife, how beautiful. I mean, the wine, go down to Augusta. I mean, Lord, I mean, it's just gorgeous. I mean, there's so much that's just within 30 minutes of us that you really could never run out of things to do. And I say to the people, myself as well, even though I've got to do more, but get out and experience the community you live in and the city and the area you live in, because you haven't even scratched the surface. There's so much there.
You touched on that so beautifully. I mean, I hope that most people that listen to our show love to do that, but talk positive about the city, uplift the community and go out and support these small and local businesses, because without us going, these businesses are slowly going to go away. So it's like we have to go out and, like you mentioned, Main Street, those businesses have changed ownership so many times.
Right. You got to be there to support it. And then also, we've had some tough things happen here recently.
Yeah.
And a big charity that I'm heavily involved in, Youth in Need, which has been around for 50 years. Serving crisis youth and things, but they're over there in the community that got hit so hard by that. Our Head Start program's over there, and it's just devastation.
Right through North
so
City.
the help, there's a lot of help there. We all think, oh, well, we didn't get hit. Lucky us. Well, yeah, but some of our neighbors got hit pretty hard.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of need. Even the smallest of things
Mm-hmm.
need is there. Just some tarps, or
Yeah.
if you're buying something for your house, some cleaning supplies, buy a few extras if they're on sale, and go give them to
Yeah.
somebody that needs them down there.
And
That's
that
doing
was
so much
you know
good
3
work.
weeks ago, and people thought, oh yeah, we did it a week, but that's going to be months and months.
No,
and years. That's going to be years. A lot of those buildings aren't coming back.
And a lot of them are not coming
Yeah.
back, which is so unfortunate, because these are generational homes that people have lived in,
for
and to
70
rebuild, it's
years.
terrible. I'm just saying, as a community, we're sometimes judged by how we react to our toughest times, and so I see a lot of good things happening, but it's not a one shot. There, that need is, and that help is going to need
It's
to be there
ongoing.
for months,
Yeah.
months and years to come.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect way to end it. So, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
We're gonna
It was
drop
a
the
joy.
links in the bio, GoJet, your social media links, your website, and all the positions that you guys are hiring for. But it was cool to get to learn another St. Charles person. I didn't know that. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you
Yeah.
as well.
Thank you so
Where
much.
in St. Charles are you? When are you
well,
there?
I'm from Darting Prairie. So yeah.
you out there? You live out
Yeah,
there?
I live in Cottleville now. Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
got
so
a son
I'm-
and daughter-in-law just bought a house out there,
Yeah. So I'm
and they
right.
have kids that are close like yours.
Yeah, I might know them. They might be
Yeah.
in my neighborhood. So
Yeah,
I'll talk to you
yeah,
after the show,
yeah.
and we'll see if they're in my neighborhood. So, all right. See ya. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Pleasure to be here.
Today they rep St. Louis, yeah. They rep St. Louis. They rep St. Louis.